How's it hanging there, shitheads, and welcome to something that's a little bit different. I'm not reviewing action figures like I used to, and I'm not playing video games like I have been. I'm actually going to be reviewing the Marvel Avengers beta, and this is a little different territory for me. I feel like I'm good at these things, but yeah, I've never really done it in front of a camera. It's interesting. It's an interesting thing, and I had this conversation with my brother, where I said, like, it's mostly good, but there are some things in it that worry me, but I also feel like might hold it back. So for me, one of the things that I really loved about this game, the thing that stood out to me when I saw the trailers and all of that, was that the character models look incredibly good. I love the way that they made the characters look in this game. They look fantastic, and they look true to its own thing. Like, it doesn't look like comic-y, but it doesn't look like the MCU. And I think a lot of people compared it to the MCU, which I don't think is fair. But I actually prefer the way that these guys look. I prefer the way Thor looks. I'm not a big fan of short-haired Thor or anything like that. But I mean, like, Thor looks great. Iron Man looks great. Hulk looks fucking phenomenal. And yeah, they all just look really. Black Widow's thick, bodacious. Another thing that I really ended up loving, but it has a few flaws, is the sound design. I thought the sound design was great, especially when you're playing as a character like Iron Man, and every little thrust and all of that, it just sounds really fucking good. Things for I guess like the Incredible Hulk or like Iron Man himself, like they have this tendency to not, I don't know, it's weird. Like, their sound design is really good when Hulk's stomping around, or Iron Man shooting his repulsors, or Black Widow's doing her thing, or whoever's doing their thing, whatever. It all sounds good, but then there's just these little moments where like punches won't land, or they won't sound like they're landing. Like when I hear the Incredible Hulk, I want to hear him roaring and screaming and punching and thudding, and you don't really hear all of that. One of the things, and this kind of ties into one of my cons with the game, is that I just feel like when you're playing as the Incredible Hulk, just like pillow fist. I said it in one of my videos of it. It's just like the Incredible Pillow Fist. All he does is just like fluffy punch everything. It's like I don't like that so much. But the rest of the sound design is great. Crunching through the snow sounds really good. All the, like I said, the Iron Man repulsor blast, Hulk's thudding around and all that, it sounds really good. It needs just a little bit of work. Another thing that I actually really like is that it seems pretty accurate to the source material of the comics in a way that Marvel didn't, or the MCU didn't really do, and that's that they implement like the Inhumans and certain other characters that we can't really get into now because I don't know much about them, but I do know they're in the game. But their ability to tap into that, I really love, because I think that's something that the MCU really missed for me, is the more powered up people. Yeah, they had Scarlet Witch and they had Quicksilver, but they didn't have mutants. One, they didn't have the Inhumans, they didn't have anything like that. It was mostly just rich people who got had a lot of money and or a lot of training. I get that, and I get what they were going for, but I love this as a video game with its ability to tap into that sort of unused source material that the comics has. Another thing that I really liked is the exploration in the game. The exploration for me was it surprised me, because it's not fantastic, but they always put a little chest somewhere. So if you go and you look and you're like, hey, I want to get outside of this, you're more than likely going to find a little chest with a little something in it, whether it's a material, or whether it's actual piece of armor or something like that. I love that so much, and there were quite a few that were actually challenging. One, I remember specifically having to break these vents and shoot Iron Man's repulsor at it, and there was 4 of them that weren't really easy to find, and I sort of just stumbled across that and then got this chest with this badass armor piece in it. I was like, whoa, that's fucking sick. So I really loved that. And that's I don't know. One other thing, probably the last thing that I actually liked, and this kind of ties into another bad thing, but is just the bots, the actual bots that you can play with if you're not playing multiplayer. They actually feel really good. They feel incredible as far as the way that they play with you, and the way that they're in most games, say if you're playing Gears of War or something, Dom or Baird or Cole, whoever, they usually don't kill the last person, and typically you're doing most of the killing with them doing a little bit on the side. In this, it's dude, they're actually fighting. They're actually doing a really fantastic job at fighting. They go and they help you, they revive you, all those things. But also, there were so many times that I'd be like, oh, I want to kill that last enemy, and then Kamala Khan's big ass hands just fucking bitch smack it. And I thought that was really impressive. So for me, those things were really fantastic. And then I guess the final thing that I have to talk about is actual graphics. For the most part, it looks really good. The lighting's fantastic, the textures are fantastic. we do kind of stumble into some problems, and this is kind of like the gist of this beta that I got, is that most of it is, it's like 75% good on like almost everything, and then there's like just a little 25% that holds it back. It looks fantastic. The game really looks good. The character models, like I said, they look great. The detail on them is great. The way the Hulk's veins come out of his neck, the way Thor's lightning looks, the way Kamala Khan's hair moves, and the way the way that they animated the fist stretching and all that stuff is like really good. The animations are nice and all of that. Same with like Iron Man, like all of his lasers and all that shit I absolutely fucking loved. Same thing with like Black Widow's invisibility cloak. It all just looks really damn good. And then as I finish this, I'm gonna actually get into the cons of the game, and one of the big ones is the performance of it. My God, we were all kind of worried about the frame rate and that being a thing, and it really is. It kind of bums me out now that we have games, and I get that like 30 frames per second is more cinematic. If you're doing 60 frames per second, it's a lot more fast paced and all of that. And if you're going 30 frames per second, typically you want a more cinematic look. So I understand why they did it. But a game that's coming out in 2020 at the end of a generation, they shouldn't be struggling to even hit 30 frames per second. That's a little ridiculous. Like, there's not even as much going on the screen as I've seen other games produce. I can't think of any off the top of my head, I suppose, but like there are so many games that came out 5 years ago that can do way more, put way more on the screen. Maybe not have the same like visual prowess, but it's not the best looking game in the world. It looks really good, but it's not the best game I've seen. I mean, shit, like a good example, Spider-Man. Spider-Man probably fits the same amount of enemies on the screen. It probably fits the same amount of craziness on the screen, and that game played absolutely flawlessly. I don't think I experienced a frame dip in Spider-Man. Now, when you compare that to the Avengers, which is kind of funny because they're both Marvel, Avengers really fucking tanks. I've seen like, I obviously don't have a counter, but like 10 frames per second where it's just like chop, 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 chop. And that's a little fucking ridiculous. I mean, like when you're doing that shit and you're in this really tight claustrophobic area and there is a lot going on, it makes it almost unplayable. When it just goes like it just turns into a chop fest. It's absolutely abysmal, and I think it's quite sad that there's a game out in 2020 that's not hitting the minimum of 30 frames per second consistently across the board. Another problem that I kind of have, that I really had with it, not kind of had, was that the servers on the beta were really bad, dude. I didn't understand it. Like, there were so many times I would be in a game and then it would just, or I'd be joining in the lobby and it would just be like, oh, can't connect, take me all the way back to the main screen, and then I would have to sit through loading screens and do it. And this happened like 8 times in a row before I was like, fuck this, dude. I'm just like, I can't even play with, it didn't fill the lobby to begin with, but then I couldn't get into a lobby, or it wouldn't finish the loading on it, whatever was going on with it, it just wouldn't work. And so I was like, fuck this, I'm just gonna play with bots. And I played with bots, and that's how I got to learn that the bots are actually really good. That's quite sad. It's your first weekend of a beta, and you should have everything ironed out as far as your servers go and all of that, because if you want people to enjoy this game the way that you say they should, which is playing online, which is playing with your friends, if you can't even do that in the beta because your servers are fucking up, that is a big red flag for me. I don't really like that so much. Another thing that I think I really had was that the missions feel really fucking boring if you're not playing on a hard difficulty. For me, that's okay. I enjoy playing on hard difficulty. I like a challenge, especially when you're playing with like more friends. I'm sure it would be even easier than with bots, but playing on a harder difficulty was really fun. They're throwing enemies at you left and right. The enemies are fucking beefy. They hit like a truck, and you actually have to worry about being downed as this superhero, which I think is nice. But playing on a lighter difficulty, it's literally like it's weird, dude. It's like you do more damage in higher difficulties than you do in lower difficulties, but you take less damage in lower difficulties too. So I don't get it. And then another thing that I just didn't really like a lot, these are the cons, by the way, I mean, if you haven't already guessed that, is that certain missions are incredibly good. Like, I think they throw like 12 missions at you. Like 4 of those are really fun, and they stand out, and there's really cool boss battles and like all this. One of them was the Abomination one. That was like one of the main ones, but being able to fight Abomination as the Hulk felt really cool, and like the way that it transitioned into different arenas and sort of a little bit more challenging, that was really cool. But then playing one mission was one of the times that I was waiting for a lobby to open up forever. Finally get into it. I'm playing with like 1 person and 2 bots, which is a fucking bummer. But then it doesn't, like, it lasts maybe a minute and a half. So I waited for like 10 minutes to get into this fucking lobby to play with this person, and it was literally just like go into a room, fight 4 enemies. A minute and a half. What the fuck? Like, what is that? And then there were like another 8 missions that were kind of like that, just all the same. Hey, go fight this person, go do this. And I get it. That's like, it's what games are, right? Especially what these kind of games are. Like, you have to fight enemies and you go do that. But I mean, like, I don't know. I get that it's a beta, and I can't judge this too harshly because all these things are subject to change, and all these things are subject to expanding, and it's just a beta. I get that, but these were the little red flags that I had. The potential for this game though is immense. I think that there's a lot that they can do if they introduce more varied levels and if they introduce harder challenges. That for me is like what I really enjoyed in the beta, was those 4 missions that had like a wide variety of enemies to fight, and it's sort of bigger and more expansive, and you can run around as Hulk or fly around as Iron Man or whip around as Kamala Khan and have space to do all of that. That's when the game really stood out to me, because it played a lot better. When you have another 8 missions that are just in tiny little cramped corridors where you don't get to experience all that cool shit at a distance and really take it in and appreciate it, that kind of felt bad. So if they can do more of those larger, more expansive, more flying around and hurtling over shit, and you know, just being able to explore and fight a wide variety of enemies, they will do really good. And if they keep implementing that in different maps and putting more of those vault challenges, which that's another thing, the vault challenges were absolutely fantastic, it could be really good. But if not, be really stale. If it's just a bunch of cramped corridors and missions that last, or drop zones, whatever you want to call them, that last 5 minutes or less than, it could get very stale very quick. But to me, I think if they can keep implementing new characters from, you know, the Marvel comics, keep implementing new areas to fight enemies in, and keep introducing new enemies, new challenges, new gear, all of this, it can be really fucking fun. And I think that's just, it's kind of a big what if, but I think I see them doing it, especially with those 4 missions that we got to play. It's like, I'm still very optimistic about it. I think that they're going to understand that, and they're going to really like try to, but then again, they only have a month, and this beta, you know, in a month, you can't really fix a whole lot. So if they don't have more variety than beyond what I've seen in the beta, or if they don't plan on implementing that over the years, it could be bad. My overall idea of it in closing is that it was really fun. At the beginning, it was kind of slow. It kind of took its time to introduce you into things that I didn't really need introduction to because I play games a lot. But the introduction was really slow, and those like first 8 missions were kind of whack. But then those like last 4 big things to do, those were incredibly fun. And that's when it really expanded and felt like, oh fuck, this is cool, because I started getting a lot of armor, started killing a lot of different enemies, and experiencing these characters in different ways, and that felt really good. So overall, I'd probably say, you know, I enjoyed it immensely towards the end. 2/3 of it, I honestly thought it was okay. I'm still very optimistic about it. I think it's going to be great. I'm more than likely going to purchase it day one and be able to play more of it in depth. But thank you guys so much for watching this. I hope this answered a little bit of your questions on what the game is. Obviously, there's another beta coming out this next weekend that you guys should definitely play. And feel free to let me know if you played the beta, what you thought of it and what your thoughts were. Again, I thought it was really good despite some of its flaws. It was 75% good and 25% okay. So for me right now, if I was giving it a, you know, a grading out of 5 shits, I would probably say it's like I give 3.5 shits about this game. There's 1.5 that they really need to work on, but 3.5 shits. I guess that's the grading system, is just a shit. 3.5 shits is what I'm going to give the beta so far, and I really look forward to seeing how they expand on it and grow from this beta and September 4th. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. It means the absolute world to me. If you want to subscribe, feel free to. And if you like this video, like it and let me know why. And if you didn't like it, dislike it and let me know why. That being said, I'm going to get it off here and probably go play some more video games or go eat. I don't know. Just my daily quarantine routine. Anyways, you guys stay super shitty, folks, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.